And, yeah. And I guess I had three objectives, or three reasons I thought Bill fit. The obvious one is he's a rock star in this space, but everybody knows that, so I won't elaborate anymore on that, and you can see it. Secondly, I knew he would do a good job of elevating the discussion. A lot of us spend our time with our heads down working on this problem or that problem, and then I hear Bill speak and I get inspired. Oh, I could look at it this way. And as soon as I think I've figured out what he's talking about, the next time I see him, he's talking about something different. I've got to figure out, now what is he talking about? Same thing happened today. So I think thank you, but I still have to figure out some of the stuff. That was great. So he's so fantastic at getting us to look at things in different ways and at a much higher level. And I completely agree with the resourcefulness perspective, because many of us do try to get to zero, right? I mean, I know I've spent a lot of my career thinking I've got to get less waste, less waste, less waste, but it is not fulfilling. The fulfilling is making life better, and I think Bill nailed it. And finally, I wanted to talk about the Wonder House, because I have been peripherally involved with him. I'd like to be involved more, because it's an excellent example of providing something that can help a lot of people and doing it in a very positive way that incorporates a lot of his latest thinking, and also using plastics and other materials in very creative and positive ways. And I think that speaks to a lot of the reason all of us are here today, is figuring out how to do it better. So the Q&A is, you guys, your job is the Q, and his job is the A. I'm just here to facilitate, so I'm done. You guys better get busy thinking of some good questions, but I think Bill had something to say.
Thank you. I just wanted to say quickly, there's a point, very interestingly, for example, in architecture, where I've been in a situation where a president of a college was being told to take the 15-foot ceilings in his building and make them 10, close off the top part of the window because they want to hang air conditioning and so on and so forth, and essentially destroy the building for energy efficiency. And it was $5 million to do that, when it became very quickly clear that if they gave $1 million to a windmill project to some farmers nearby, who could then send their kids to college after school, that they would produce twice as much energy as the building ever would need and preserve the beautiful old historic inefficient building. So this idea of getting to zero can have strange things, because you start getting a law of diminishing returns, and you're actually pushing so hard to get these last little bits when you might want to just go somewhere else and do something fabulous, and make the world a better place because you're here, not a little less bad.
I got one icebreaker. Come on, let's see some hands. Come on, let's see those great, compelling questions. Bill and I were talking right before this, and he mentioned something to me that almost astonished me, but it of course makes sense. He mentioned to me that he has his own heroes. I think many of us look up to Bill as a hero and as a shining light and leading thinker in the space that inspires a lot of us. And you were telling me about one of the guys that inspires you, so could you just reflect on that a moment?
Well, with the Wonder House, too, it's very important. I don't know how many of you have heard of Dr. Venkateswamy from Madurai, India. He was a cataract surgeon, eye surgeon. And it was $1,900 to get your eyesight back. And he said, I can do this with a single blade, 2 pieces of plastic, and a cubic meter of sterility. Why is it $1,900? So he decided to give eyesight to people for free. Okay? And that if he gave it for free, he would have enough demand to get his own factory going. And so instead of the lenses being $220 each, they'd be $4. And by the time he died, he had given eyesight to over 2 million people for free. And if you couldn't afford it, if you could afford it, it was $190. So what he did is he brought the whole concept of mass production to something that was providing a great benefit. And it was an amazing story, because at the beginning he had to go to villages where he would find the blind people sitting by the road. And he would say to them, come with me, get in a bus, and I'll bring you back, and you'll be able to see. And they would say, well, what do you want? My kidneys? They were terrified. And it took a while before people understood that if they're elderly, they can be coming back with their eyesight. And they were all suspicious, of course. Why? Because the modern question of commerce has been, how much can I get for how little I give? what he was doing is seeing how much he could give for all that he got. So beautiful.
Hang on, you're still, sorry, you still have to work.
Ultraviolet resistance of plastics. How much do you consider that? Do you want all your houses to be black, which I'm sure you don't, because most of the plastics that we do recover do not have UV resistance and can't be used for exterior construction.
So we're about to get into all that now, and that's why I'm working with the chemical companies, because they're really good at these things. And we'll be doing it through the cradle-to-cradle filters. But one thing to understand is that typically, I think what we'll see with wonder houses is they will be plastered, where people want to use cement renders and things like that. They will have bricks on the outside, because over time, people will render them visible to their own culture and their own place. And in many places, what they don't have is structural material. So, for example, in Mexico, it's very straightforward to build a masonry wall. We can build adobe, we can take bags of plastic and stack up things and use, barbed wire as mortar, and then plaster them. But, so we can get the traditional wall. What they don't have are trees and steel. So what we're looking at is using these things for space frames, where they'd be under the floor, getting you up out of the mud, and under the roof. And the question really becomes, at that point, fire retardancy and issues around that kind of thing, which we can do apparently with phosphates, aluminum hydroxide, other ways. So I'm not sure how they're going to tell us to do this, but that's the idea, is to look into that and see if that's possible. We've also found that with the new techniques in carbon fiber and things like that, very simply, we can actually use some materials for tensioning that can be applied to various frames for strength. Very lightweight, very affordable. Because we're really interested in this idea of a negative cost of goods. I mean, I remember Ron Gonan was telling me that, is Ron still here? Is Ron here? No. If New York City was paying $80 a ton to send stuff to Ohio. So you start to think about these things. If people are paying, remember he said everything has a cost? If we were in a position to use these materials in ways that were productive, we could get really low cost of goods and then share it with other people.
Bill, are you working, in some of these areas you're working with, some of the issues are not so much the design of the packaging, but the lack of systemic waste management systems in those communities. Are you working with any organizations to, since your houses are sort of a great iconic solution and signal of those waste issues, are you working with any organizations to get solutions to the waste management issues as well?
Yeah, actually, I've just come back from meetings in Europe on that subject, and we're going to get some funding, which was offered to us, which is very kind, to work on some ideas for marking systems for various materials so that we can start to see them in more propitious ways. And so that area is something we're going to be really excited about, and that's why I'm working with Waste Management and the other recycling companies, because I think that's one of the great opportunities now will be how do we see things as they come through the systems, and then we can be optimizing. So for now, it's like we heard earlier, some of these things would be sorted as that's going to energy. Okay. Some would be that's going to park itself in a building, for future generations as a transition for now, etc. But I think without having those data sets that you're indicating, or the ability to see materials so that we can optimize our handling of all of them, it's hard to really get that long-term plan articulated. So it's a really important question, and I think it'll be one of the big ones we take on next. I think the thing for me, though, is because I build, I think if we show ourselves using the materials and put them into saying, I'd rather use this for something useful to give it to the benefit of people who have nothing, give them something that's of great value, and it's not perfect, it's a transition, we understand that, we can afford it, it's good for everybody, and let's let all boats rise while we articulate an optimized protocol. I'm a practical person.
Good afternoon, and you're a great hero of mine, so I really appreciate your remarks. I work in the Sandy recovery and disaster relief space in New York City, and I'm just curious if you've been in conversation with FEMA or any of the national environmental management agencies regarding this new design, because I think that there's a real need for new suggestions and new ideas.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to being able to talk to people, but we're very careful with what we do, and I don't want to get ahead of it. It's really you know, Edison said that a vision without execution is a hallucination. So I find it much more effective when I walk into a room and I'm not hallucinating. So when we're ready, we'll go. Yeah.
And I'm glad Bill mentioned Edison, because the other thing that Edison's famous for is all the failures that he had to live through to come up with the few successes. Well, many successes he had, but he had many times that several orders of magnitude more failures. And I think a lot of us, in what we're going to talk about, and Bill talks about the transition, what we're going to be talking about this afternoon, a lot of the speakers are going to be talking about how do we bridge that transition, how do we make it shorter and less painful, and who do we incorporate so that less of those failures are absolute failures, and that we learn from them and we do fast failures, as we say in Silicon Valley. How do we do those fast failures and learn quickly so that we can shorten that transition time? Because a lot of this stuff is transitionary until we get to Bill's big vision. And I know next time I'm with you at a conference, it's going to be yet another vision, but this one's a pretty aspirational vision. It's all the same basis, but you keep raising the bar, which is good. Thank you. We have
Louis, could you get in my black bag? I have a copy of the protocol. I want to show everybody a dead tree, just because you should see it. What Louis was describing, the protocol at Cradle to Cradle, is this. We printed it, but if I brought a copy so you can actually see the real thing. Look at take a look at it.
Well, first.
Okay? Yeah. No, but it's rigorous and it's detailed.
And all of you are just jumping at reading all this. But
No,
it's good stuff.
and if you have trouble with insomnia, it's perfect. Very valuable thing. No, but it's a very rigorous exercise. And it is all one thing. Just think this way. Is it a biological or technical nutrient? Is it optimized for human and natural systems? Is it designed for next use?
Some of the stuff that he shared with us today is in there too. So
And this is
if you want
all
to get the meat
at the
behind
Institute.
it's in here.
It's all free.
It's all free.
It's all free.
So not only did he think of the concept of cradle to cradle, and not only did he work really hard to communicate it to us through his first book. I don't know if that was your first book, frankly. It's the first book of yours I read. Sorry. But he brought it to life. And then he gave it to all of us for free through the Institute. So, wow. Thank you, Bill. But now we got to use it, right? He's made it for free, guys. I mean, this is free stuff. So.
I'd also like to compliment Green Blue, because I was the founder of Green Blue too a long time ago. So it's good to see everybody here. And it's nice to see that people see this idea of biological technical nutrition that Michael Braungart was so importantly articulating in Germany in the late 80s as well. These things are really important. And Philips has just announced they're going to sell lumens instead of lamps. Okay? Right out of Cradle to Cradle.
Yep.
It's a product of service.
Yep.
Okay? That way we get the indium back, the gallium back. Very exciting. So it's really been fun. This is a 30-year overnight sensation.
We're going to hear some more about those 30-year overnight sensations in the afternoon, and I'm getting the wind-up here. So if there's no more burning questions, we'll wrap it up. Bill's graciously been with us all day. I think you're still going to stay with us. Thank you. So you can corner him at the breaks or whenever you can corner him. But thank you again, Bill. Let's give him a warm round of applause. This was really generous.
Bill and Mike, thank you very much. That was great. If we could key up the next presentation.